when I spoke to Peter Dutton last night, he told me about the hostile press pack he's had following him around this campaign.
I just think they're so biased, and many of them just activists, not journalists, that their position becomes counterproductive, and they're playing to a particular audience, to a Green voter, and frankly, as the Prime Minister's demonstrated, his whole government has been about how do we please the inner city Green voter in Sydney and Melbourne. That's why he's taken such a soft stance in relation to anti-Semitism. The left-wing media, frankly, by polling day, I think will be counterproductive in what they're doing.
Now, this is really something you just can't argue with. Dutton has been met with far more aggressive, argumentative, antagonistic questions from the journalists on his campaign bus. And in truth, their opinions masquerading as questions in many cases. Here's one journalist. This is Channel 7 reporter Isabel Mullen.
You disclosed that you were the beneficiary of a family trust in 2014. Mr. Dutton, aren't you being tricky with the truth? Not to answer today. Aren't you being tricky with your own truth at the moment?
No.
Mr. Dutton, your candidate has described China as a grub of a country and said feminists were to blame for Trump's loss in 2020. What do you think of those comments? Is his enthusiastic support for Donald Trump a problem, though? Mr. Dutton, is his enthusiastic support?
Now, that's only matched by ABC journalist Evelyn Manfield.
So was that answer then by Mr Tian a mistake, and also was your answer yesterday on West Jerusalem a mistake?
No, on both.
Sorry, well, your office had to go and clarify it, so was it a mistake?
No, I'm happy to take it. Is that the question you want to ask? Sorry, sure.
Questions. If you get some of those questions answered, would you, from Keir Starmer, say, would you be willing to change your mind?
I've dealt with that issue.
I don't think you have, respectfully. Would you be willing to change your mind, Mr Dutton?
And of course, they're not alone. Have a look at more of the same.
Which 41,000 of them might not have a job in 6 weeks?
How is it that the Liberal Party has recruited so many members of a religious sect who don't vote to hand out for them?
Whether it is how your gas plan's going to get electricity bills down or how you're going to spend the health and education budgets. Why is there this delay on letting voters into the secret?
Mr Dutton, we don't see a lot of your softer side. Do you think that your time as a police officer led you to have a black and white view of the world?
And Dutton has spoken about the ABC and The Guardian, describing them as hate media. And you can understand why. The ABC is funded by the taxpayer. It's meant to be impartial, especially during an election campaign. But here was the reporter behind well-known attacks on Liberal figures targeting Dutton last night on primetime television.
Some First Nations leaders say this was part of a pattern for Peter Dutton when it comes to race.
Do you think that Peter Dutton has an issue with race?
We uncovered fresh details about the Dutton family's dealings and the people that they've done business with. A large proportion of the Dutton family's wealth comes from private childcare, often bought and sold through trusts.
Hardly unbiased reporting just days out from the election. I mean, if Albanese had been involved in childcare businesses, he'd been making that a virtue of his election campaign. But Dutton deals with these attacks. He takes hostile questions from the travelling press pack on a daily basis. He's used to it. But then Albanese dared today to mock him for supposedly not fronting up to tough questions and instead coming on Sky News.
I did the 7:30 report last night. I know that Peter Dutton is courageously showing strength by doing Paul Murray tonight for the second time in the campaign. I'm sure that will be a rigorous cross-examination of their costings.
I mean, Albanese speaking of a lack of courage is like Putin claiming he stands for peace or a lifeguard afraid to get wet. It is laughable. If anyone doesn't have courage to face tough questions, it's Albanese. He's never had the courage to come on Sky News during prime time when the audience is highest. Not with Peter Credlin, Andrew Bolt, Paul Murray or me, to answer what would truly be tough questions about the state of our economy, the cost of living crisis, national security and his gross mishandling of social cohesion. And during the anti-Semitism crisis, which the Director General of ASIO said was the greatest threat to life in Australia and still is, Albanese repeatedly refused to sit down for an interview. Never mind that I'm the only Jewish nightly television host in the country. And as for Paul Murray's show, on both occasions that Dutton has appeared during this election, he's faced questions from voters that he couldn't prepare for and that he didn't know in advance. That was the case with the pub test, and it'll be the same tonight. And we look forward to watching it in just under an hour's time.